So, so with that, let's get rocking and rolling. So it is October 17th. We've got a few more months to go, but this is the planning stages for the point in time count. Some of you are in the middle of it already, starting to do, doing your planning. Some of you are just this is the start of your planning, this meeting. We all had the NOFO, we had the changes to the data standards. And then, just when we think we get a break, there's other homework right behind us. So, our goal is to make this lift as easy as possible. And really, it's the tech and the people to back up what you're doing locally. And I think you'll see some pretty cool enhancements, and there's some updates that we made based on the feedback that we received from y'all from last year. And looking forward to sharing. So we do have say about 50 somewhat 53 people on right now. You can come off mute and ask questions. It's not too big, but if you do have background noise, just put yourself on mute while we're talking. That'd be appreciated. And I'll try to do the same. I've got 2 dogs that are cooperating right now, but you never know. So just calling it out. So without that, let's see if I can. There we go. All right. So a little background. Simtech's been around for a while. I started the company when I was flying solo in 1998. It was a consulting company focused mostly with banks and leasing companies. And a lot of my early work, the reason why I was able to create a company early on was related to Y2K. So that's how old I am, I guess. The sky was falling, and I prevented it from falling with a lot of code. So just joking, but after working with the banks, we really focused on. We had an opportunity to help a community called Quincy, Massachusetts, and that's nearby where I was living. And my best friend at the time, he was running the shelter, and it was over capacity, and the fire department was going to shut him down. And I talked it through with him, and we ended up creating the first data warehouse in the country, and the first prioritized by name list in the country to figure out who was always omnipresent. And we helped guide that community into creating 12 units of housing and putting the high equalizers, that's 12 women that were constantly at the shelters, into housing. And they were also visiting the emergency rooms often, and save the community 10 grand per woman to put these women into housing versus keeping them homeless. And since then, our company really 2003 has focused exclusively on homelessness. So it was one of those pivotal moments in my life. And at the early stages, it was just me. And now we kept growing on what was early work that we said, wow, applying finance and what I learned to encode to homelessness. There's a lot that can be done. And so we started there with a warehouse, and then a few years went on, and we were supporting the point in time counts, and we were doing it in paper because that's what people did. And it was awful. It was time consuming. I couldn't read people's handwriting. We had to re-enter all the data from the paper into an Excel spreadsheet, tabulate all the results, and it just took so long. So we created the first mobile app designed specifically for the point in time count, and HUD licensed the tech. And we had a good run with HUD for, I think it was 2 years. But the problem with the HUD work is HUD couldn't host any data because of fair housing laws. So every community had to have their own data store to receive data from the app. Well, that was just too much of a lift for most communities. They don't have IT staff to figure that part out. So we parted ways with HUD, but after a significant knowledge gain, and we had a good opportunity to work with some of the key HUD technical systems providers, and Counting Us is a variant of that early tech, to further iteration of it. And now we have both the Counting Us app and a regional command center that receives data from it. So we don't have to worry about fair housing law because it's not HUD. So, and then since then, we started off with just that Quincy, Massachusetts as a community, and then it morphed to 3 and then 5. And now we've supported 80 communities around the country, which is really cool. We're excited that we have a few new ones already for this year. So we're expanding our growth. That covers about 25%, just over the continental US as far as census tracts go. They're using our tech, and I'll show you that map in a second. But we also built, now we have homelessdata.com, so that can ingest data from your HMIS system and produce dashboards. It can do by name lists that can be run geospatially. So you have a big community, like a balanced estate COC. It's not a list, it's a view into the data based on the community, and you can filter by veterans, by chronic, et cetera. So we have that tech, and then we have mobile tech as well that's really focused on the ongoing work of street outreach. I'll show the way. And this framework, the key part of it is that everything works together. So you can work with your existing HMIS, you use our mobile tech for the point-in-time count, you use our mobile tech for street outreach, and we use the warehouse to tie all that data together to create the regional reports, like the LSA, the assistant performance measures, to your by name list, et cetera. So anyway, I wouldn't be able to do this without our team. There's no way one developer, and I'm not even a developer anymore. Like I have to do other work. But I'm really proud of our team and what they've accomplished and who they are as people. They're on this chat, but just so we do have 4 developers. We've got community impact advisors. We got myself, but we also, throughout the count, on the planning stages, during the count, after the count, we all work together to manage the help desk and to be there if you have any questions or you have any needs that we can help you out with. So it's a little bit, and that's worth noting, because you might be also looking at other tools like Esri has a tool, but a lot of it is, and there's others that are like, kind of a running this in my garage type operation. Do you get the depth of support and experience from either a one-man show or a giant Fortune 500 company that isn't focused on homelessness? Probably not. So just figured we're sharing. So I hit on a bunch of these things. I'm not going to read them out, one by one, but there are reasons why hopefully you want to work with us if you haven't worked with us yet, and why hopefully you're coming back if you have. So great. And yeah, this is our 12th year. So this isn't something we just started with. It's industry proven, and some of the proof is in the data. So this was taken a couple of days ago, but over 40,000 volunteers or surveyors so far for over 260,000 responses. So those are surveys or tallies from 364 different count activities and growing. So I believe that's we'll probably be pushing close to 400,000 responses this year based on some of the communities we already have signed up. So why do we do the point in time count? Really it's the best snapshot and the tool to analyze homelessness in the community. A big part of that is HMIS tends to focus on the shelters, and the outreach data tends to be either of poor quality if it's captured in HMIS, or isn't a full canvas. So you're only getting whatever parks the outreach teams go to, et cetera. So this is really a good snapshot. It's also it addresses a lot of the data quality issues that tend to linger in HMIS. Open enrollments, people not doing their intakes, et cetera. But this data should be used both locally within the state as well as nationally for the annual homeless assessment report to quantify the extent of the problem and then help distribute resources effectively. And then locally, with the NOFO planning, your annual competition, it's good to know where you stand now and are you making progress? Are you moving the needle? Are your outflows higher than your inflows? And we can see that by looking at the trends over time. And these dashboards can also, we can look at data just for veterans, for chronic, et cetera. And this is and I'll share some more details on what we're also doing for dashboards for this year. So on the NOFO,
Hey man, I'm
sorry.
just going to interject real quick.
Sure.
Just on the notion of why we do PIT, just want to do maybe a little hot take that we're all doing PIT because we don't really have a good handle on our outreach population, right? Or our unsheltered population. So it is a consequence of the data standards, a consequence of our tech, a consequence of data quality. So it's, the nature of our reality that we all have to do PIT because it is something that's required, but it's also something that we want to do as a community so we can actually see who's in our community and really gauge that population that we often are missing. Um, and we did present on this, so I think this is okay for me to share. But with one of our communities, I guess I'll leave them unknown, but a very well-known community, 50% of the people that were found in last year's PIT were in HMIS, right? So that's great. We already have their data. Maybe we don't trust it, who knows? But what about that other 50%, right? So while we, have a point in time software, I just wanted to make notion that we really want to get away from this exercise as much as possible and help us to close that gap on that other 50% of people that we aren't seeing. And then back to you, Matt.
Good point. And I may be picking at the scab if some of you are still getting has some PTSD from the NOFO, but it's worth noting that the NOFO does call out the importance of the PIT. So there's 5 points straight up, 3 for the PIT count itself, 2 for a youth count. And then within the NOFO, there are other sections that also look towards the PIT. So your system performance, what are you doing for racial equity? Are you actually analyzing your data to see if are there disparities between your house and your unhoused populations? Do you have effective street outreach? So you can use the work that you're doing now to help inform the narratives for those sections of the NOFO. Use counts, on that note, Simtech does have a survey instrument specific to the use count. It's a variant of what was done by Chapin Hall. It's been informed by youth advisory boards to really get into the demographics and what's important for that youth population. Our surveys are customizable, but without a national standard for a youth count, we have to create our own. And that's something that we'd be advocating for too. And part of the work is to build mass and build a movement to inform HUD practices. And we do that by working together with the communities we work with. So over time, and as an example that I won't get in, we can get into details of it if people have questions, but the geographic sampling and enumeration model that's an optional feature that people can do. And I'll share that's basically allows you to create a statistically reliable estimate of how many people are homeless without canvassing your entire COC. So if you're short on volunteers and you can't, especially for some of these larger COCs, and you just can't effectively canvass the whole community, you can there's this a sampling model that you can do. Well, we implemented ours with Connecticut probably 7-8 years ago. And been using it with other communities, some of them on this call now. And just 2 years ago, HUD publishes a white paper about geographic sampling and enumeration. And so, which aligns really well with what we already do. So point being is sometimes there are opportunities to inform national best practices and become the gold standard. And, for the use count, I think there's an opportunity here. And there would be separate conversations, but as we grow out our work, one of the things we're looking to do is have advisory boards specific to topic areas like the youth count, like research and evaluation. Volunteer recruitment is another one that comes to mind. and what we'd be doing there, awareness and advocacy, like how you're using the data to inform the work you're doing. So just sharing what we have, but also just commenting that we want it to evolve even further. So Kevin did hit on the Show the Way app, and he's dead on. In order to help the homeless population that we're surveying for the point in time count, it really is helpful to have an ongoing relationship with people, build that rapport, get to know who's on the streets. Really use a progressive engagement approach in the sense that you're not doing a full intake the first time you meet someone. You get to know someone, you get to learn who they are over time, and they get to learn who you are over time. You're demonstrating that you show up when you say you're going to show up. They say they need socks, and you come back, or a teammate comes back 3 days later or 2 days later with socks. That's going to still open up those relationships and make it easier for you to work with that person to help eventually get them into housing. So our mobile tech for street outreach is basically a CRM for people that do street outreach work, as well as first responders that are regularly interacting with that population. Right now, this is just worthy of sharing too on that framework. This is geospatially generated, prioritized by name list, which is a mouthful. But what this is doing is using the HUD vendor test kit data, which doesn't have locations, the same way that we capture locations. It's not part of the HUD data standards. It's to be capturing latitude and longitude of every interaction. We think that's a missed opportunity because homelessness is a community problem too. Lack of community supports, what's happening upstream. If we want to look at upstream factors, the causal factors, you can look at census data, but you can't look at census data to know and say, okay, what was the school funding in this community if you don't know what community the person came from. So what you're seeing is a view into the data that's easy to manage, and it's not a static list. It's an ongoing, updated, fresh list of here's my population, and you just work with your population over time using the resources you have available. And that's if people are interested in any of this and want to dig deeper, we can do a follow-up call. But the point of this tech is that we don't need to do a VI SPDAT in order to figure out who has highest needs. You can look at length of time homelessness, presence of settling condition, and other empirical data to really do that prioritization, which aligns with the HUD prioritization notice. The VI SPDAT not only does it have racial and gender bias, but it doesn't align completely with the HUD prioritization notice.
Yep. Just want to add on to that a little bit, in that the reason why we do PIT and what we believe in is that we have actionable data. So when you're actually in front of a person, you're doing the survey, you know that person is there, you're determining that they're actually, when I say actually, I don't mean that in any type of way other than confirming that they are experiencing homelessness. You have their location right then and there. And oftentimes, like, this is seen as the one-shot opportunity for us to engage them and gather all their information, right? And that's what we do with PIT. We ask them everything, even though we might already have all the answers. But the point here that we're showing in this homeless data GIF is that we want to focus on real data and cut back all the extra work that we're all doing, as a nation to do double data entry, recorded entry, and, come up with that perfect prioritization scheme, even though we have a lot of flaws in, the VI-SPDAT and how people can get around things, so on and so forth. So just wanted to make note of that. And then wanted to address Ricky's question. And they ask, can the Counting Us app be used to count folks prior to the night of the PIT count? We'll touch on this a little bit. I think there's some nuances to the specifics, but Counting Us can be used from as soon as we start working together all the way through PIT, and then past that. There's a couple strategies to just identify known locations, so we can use that for planning purposes. And then we can talk about technicalities later, but you could use the surveys prior to the PIT count. You have to be sure that we're capturing the right sleeping location on the actual night. So if you do follow up and you go and try to find those persons that you saw previously, that's exactly like a perfect strategy if you have the capacity to do that.
Exactly. And we do have communities that are using known locations right now. So optional features. So if you don't have a contract yet, or if you want one, just to let you know, we're trying to right size the offerings for different communities, and some have more needs than others. Some is want the base package, vanilla, whatever you want to call it, which gives you the data capture needed to collect the questions asked by HUD in order to generate the HUD point-in-time report. And it comes with our support. And, for many small, especially the smaller community, that's all they need. There are other optional features, and some of them are free, that are available. And so, and it really comes down to what your needs are, and also what your budget might be. So you can customize the survey questions. We have an approach for that, volunteer registration portal, everything here. And I'm going to hit on some of the nuance, like some of the details of these in a second. So I'm going to go one at a time, but just to give you an idea of what we have available. So on that question, can we use the app now to start gathering data? Typically, the regions that we work with will use it to drop pins on the map using a known location survey that we have available. And that's, again, it's a free feature. And really what you're doing is you're just trying to identify the areas that have a denser homeless population, because then when you go to establish your count teams and figure out where to send people, you're really targeting those high density areas. So it's literally, it can be a 1 or 2 question survey. And it's really, how many people do you believe experiencing homelessness are in this location? And the answer is 2, you drop 2 and you hit submit. There are some communities that will ask a follow-on question. And it's related to the safety and the risk of the area. So if it's a high risk community where it's like, you don't want to send people without some kind of backup, or people with lived experience as guides, et cetera, or send a bigger team. I've seen it worded differently, but do you believe this area is an area that may need extra safety safeguards, something along those lines. So with those known location pins, when they go out, so against that one question, and anyone can do this, and you can do it from your phone or from a web browser. So there are areas you already know. You don't have to go out to drop the pins on the map. You can do it from the app. You can enter a local pin the map in the app and choose where to drop the pins. But the biggest thing is just try to figure out where to send people. So we use these data, as well as we can use prior years pit count information, as well as information from street outreach, if you do have outreach tech, whether it's ours or someone else's, to identify hotspots. And this information is good for planning purposes. We also use it for the geographic sampling enumeration, because we want to make sure we canvass all the high probability areas first, and then we do a random sample of all the low probability areas where we haven't defined hotspots. So on the establishment of regions and count teams, again, it's an optional feature. You can take your continuum of care, break it up into subregions. It could be geographically northwest, northeast, et cetera. It could be jurisdictional level. So if you've got a large county and you want to be cities and towns, you could do it that way. And then within, anecdotally, so we're working with Alameda County, and they have Oakland, they have Alameda, and there's a couple other communities. Part of the work there is to have those cities and town leaders really drive home the importance of the point-in-time count and have some local ownership of the quality of the data from within their own community. And part of this idea is this cascading responsibility. So it's not all up to the COC admin to say, I hope we have enough. I hope we don't have any holes, because that's just kind of a fool's errand. So if there is a community, for example, that you just can't get a hold of someone, well, in the end of the day, it's kind of on them. I mean, it impacts everyone, but you can see it in the data. You can see that they didn't have any volunteers. And so maybe you have to make an adjustment too, to, looking at other data and applying it, or looking at prior years information is, or do, maybe they missed it and you're like, we really need to go back and ask, how many, survey that area and ask in the past, on the 28th of January, how many people did, where were you sleeping? So if there's cleanup is needed, but it looks like we have Jessica has a question. Feel free to come off mute, Jessica.
Hey, is there a way to also highlight like hospitals, airports, and because we're splitting our county up by police divisions, and I'm just wondering within there, is there a way to like highlight the parks, the airport, those places with transit, hospitals? Is there a way to do that, like specific things like that?
I mean, we could use the known location survey and expand it to have another question. On the map itself, you do see details of what's underneath, what's nearby. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
I can kind of add some more clarification around how known locations work as far as it goes with counting us and the command center. So counting us is really meant to be a one-way data throw over the wall to from the apps over to the command center. So we're not pulling in pins into the app for that reason. We try to keep it as lightweight as possible, so we have no security risks and all that kind of thing. Because we do have open access and anyone can volunteer and download the app. So the no location pins are really used inside the command center for planning purposes. So you are able to set your coverage areas. The coverage area is going to be like the shading in the blue square that's on the picture right now. There are more advanced strategies that would involve Show the Way, our outreach app, and that's something that we can discuss with you all. But that was designed so that we have the two-way data connection so that people can see encampment hotspots, see how many people are staying in the encampment, so on and so forth. So two slightly different things there, and I think we can have a discussion to see what might make the most sense for what we have.
I would
So
love to
that,
later on because we just have a
yeah,
different we're just trying a new strategy this year with it, and those elements would be helpful. That's why I brought it
yeah,
up. But thank you so
no,
much.
definitely. I mean, that's really why we have two separate things. So I'm glad to hear that your community is looking at doing these more advanced strategies. Um, I'll just kind of field a couple questions that relate to this. So Jet's asking, can we integrate encampment hotspots? So similar kind of response. I think the part about integration, we can have another discussion like through some emails or a help desk about looking at the data you have and seeing if we can possibly just take the coordinates and then import them as known locations so you don't have to rekey everything. But that would still, again, just be the pins inside the command center versus volunteers seeing the pins on their map. And then Vicky's asking if we have data from prior years. So yes, we still have all the data from prior years for known locations as well as your actual pinpoints. And we do have some functions that allow you to, we have some functions that can allow you to view those separately. So yeah, that's something we can work together on. And then let's see, Rebecca has a question about any plans to add GPS coordinates in the app to mark location, no location. So we can go over that in the demo or just briefly, you have a survey, you click next, you drop your pinpoint, and then it just asks you how many people are you seeing at that location. So that's how we do that from within Counting Us. And then, let's see. Okay, yeah, so that's it for questions for right now. And then I'm still reading Mary Ann's. So yeah, back to you, Matt.
Okay. So dividing the area into smaller groups is going to make it easier to manage. It's the bigger part, and make sure you have effective canvassing and you know where to send people or reallocate. You're low on surveyors here. You need to move people around. That's the whole idea of this step. In order to get those volunteers to work with, we offer a volunteer registration portal. This is customizable to meet your local needs and branding. And all the registrants from the volunteer portal. So you'll get a unique URL. I think this is Spokane. So Spokane.pointtime.info would be for this for that community. And people are directed to go there, they register an account, and they're already good to go on the app. They don't put a setup key or anything like that. And they can choose the regions that they want to or willing to volunteer from. They can register as a group. So maybe it's a company outing, or they're saying we're going to pay you for your day off, your day of community service, or they're just friends and they want to work together. You can do that. But we do have a demo site. I think it's a demo.pointtime.info. Does that sound right? If someone could put, okay, excellent. If someone could just put that URL in the chat, just people can check it out, that'd be great.
Yep, got it.
Excellent, excellent. As far as volunteer recruitment, you might have your own people you go to. This tends to be this is just a list of organizations and entities to consider. I would highly recommend for communities that just went through NOFO too. You can put points on your rating and ranking eval just to encourage or incentivize providers to participate in the count. So I advocate for that because provider staff know how to engage people. They know the people. They know where people are, and it just gives you a really good foundation to work from, if you can. Jessica, I don't know if you still have a question. I see your hand up. I don't know if that's from before. All right, let's move on. As far as customizing the surveys, so the survey template that we come with, it is color coded, and we have a Word. I'm sorry, the survey template isn't color coded. We have a Word document that's color coded that goes along with the survey template, and that Word document that goes along with it is color coded to say these are the fields that we absolutely need, and here are the ones that are used to make sure that we have a good count. So like you're making sure the person hasn't been interviewed before and they're literally homeless. So we those are kind of control questions. And then we have a few questions for research purposes. For any of you that attended the National Alliance to End Homelessness, they had a data webinar last week, and Dennis Culhane, the professor and doctor from UPenn, heavily advocated for the capturing of last permanent address, which is something that we've been doing. We have available in the core survey template as well as in Show the Way. That's for upstream analysis, like we talked about with using census data. You can also use that data set to show if people are what's the transiency and how far people are from where they last became housed. So there's some good information there. And then this year, there may be an appetite for some communities to look to expand their questions and look to see if they can smooth out their trend lines, but they're having a lot of asylum seekers and immigrants coming to the community that are using their shelter beds. They're in the communities, and we've done something similar with COVID. And then after natural disasters happen, like fires, typically in California, and hurricanes in Texas and Florida, where people want to quantify, are you homeless as a result of a weather event or natural disaster? Marianne, how are you doing? You want to have a question?
Sorry, mine is coming back to the map thing Jessica brought up, so I can wait if you want me to wait.
No, we can go back to it.
Okay, so I think what Jessica was asking is like, within app where you've got your geography type and you can either choose census or county or state or whatever, are those maps customizable? Like, could we provide our own map to be kind of in the app while we're conducting the pit, if that makes sense?
So you can define the regional boundaries, and the puzzle pieces that we use tend to be census tracts. If you do need a more granular puzzle piece, you can use census area block groups. But you can define your own regions by within the command center, clicking on and choosing the region and making it up, comprising it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So if you do sign up for the region county management. Another optional feature is to have print-friendly maps. These are image files that would typically be printed out locally and handed out to people, that will have the known location pins on there, as well as if this is a possibility, because we're doing it offline, we could potentially drop other pinpoints here, like some of the locations that Jessica mentioned. Important to note, we had you covered for the data standard changes. We still haven't seen the HIC and PIT notice for housing inventory chart and point-in-time count notice that comes from HUD that would typically call attention to the changes for this year. But we know that the changes went into effect October 1, and we can expect that HUD is going to have these data standard changes as part of the point-in-time count as well. So these are the two that are noteworthy. Race and ethnicity are now combined into one field. And so, while you used to have it as a race question and an ethnicity question, now they're together. And it's multi-select. And there is a new response value for Middle Eastern and North African. And the gender questions, there's a couple label changes. And it's worth noting that while we can't change how the date, like what date is needed for the point in time report, if a community wants to use the former labels, female and male, that's up to your discretion. You can change those. And then, so moving on, so the data standards are covered. Updates that we've made and are still making a few, because we still have a little bit of runway to add some more functionality. Let's start off with the volunteer registration. So one thing that we haven't been able to do is to check to see how well aligned the volunteers or the surveyors are with the population being surveyed. And there's a lot more of an appetite for racial equity conversations, for LGBTQ plus, to making sure that you have a population that you're sending guides out to people with lived experience, ideally. But we haven't been capturing that data on the registration side. And new for this year, we're actually the same questions I just mentioned from HUD about race and ethnicity and gender. Communities have an option to include those in the volunteer registration portal to see if they want to do any analysis, to see if there's a disparity between those being surveyed and the people doing the surveying. So that's exciting. Also, the text in the volunteer registration portal, for those of you who used it in the past, you might want a small tweak, here and there. And typically in the past, if it was, you need to reach out to Simtech or the help desk and we'll make the change for you. And that's kind of a back and forth ping, and it just takes time. But new for this year, you're going to have a content editor, so you can change the text on your own. So that's good for everyone. It's going to make it easier for you to have control, and it's going to take some of the weight off of our internal team, so we can do more elsewhere. Beyond that, on the volunteer registration, it was one of those things that was kind of irksome, and we kind of like just danced around it. But it wasn't a big development push, but it's one of those deals that after someone registered in the volunteer registration portal, they received a welcome email, and there was the instructions were to request a lost password, or reset their password, right at the start. Well, they never had a password to start with, so it's not really resetting it. So now they're just going to get a password set link. It's just a turn of phrase, but it's just a one less step, and it's just not saying, well, it's not a reset, it's a set. So there's that. We mentioned we're updating the surveys for the data, or have already updated the surveys to align with 2024's data standards. The observation tally, we're trying to get as much coverage of actual surveys as possible in the communities. And one of the things that we were missing in the observation tally was a question of the surveyor of why they're doing a tally and not actually trying to survey the person. So, and it's more for information purposes, but it's also to help nudge the surveyor to say, you know what, maybe I should go back and try to survey this person. But if not, tell us why. Really trying to get a higher data completion rate. Because if you look at the HUD extrapolation tool, which you don't need to use because we take that logic and we baked it into the command center. But you're really looking, I think, at 80% or more completion rates before you can apply the demographics you did collect to fill in the blanks for what you didn't collect. And a lot of communities that we were working with in the past were too low. So we're trying to get nudge the volunteers to get tighter data completion and only do the observation tallies when it's a risk to their safety, the person is incoherent, whatever, there's a language barrier, et cetera. So there's going to be a reason, ideally, for that. We did have, in the past, there was times that people will volunteer multiple years in a row and they didn't use the new setup key. It was for this year. And so they just logged in the app and they thought they were using it, but they couldn't submit surveys because the last year's count activity was locked. So they would just save them all as drafts instead of getting a new setup key. So now, and that was it was a little bit of it was a data migration. It was like a fix behind the scenes, but it's not easy. So now we just have controls to make sure that they can't access a locked account activity. So also we're, for this year, from a logistics perspective, we're looking to incorporate tools to let, for people to say, I'm starting my count and, I'm doing it or I'm done with my count. So really to have more oversight of where people are, the surveyors themselves, and to know who showed up. And then beyond that, no data is data. So no one found is data. And the way that our survey tech, has been working is like everyone goes out and canvasses and surveys whoever they find in their area. But if they don't find someone, it's hard for us or for the administrator to know that that area was actually canvassed and nobody was found. So we'll be incorporating the ability for surveyors to say there was no one found in my designated area. So that way you can just check the box and not have to worry about that. And I'll share, if you Google Venice Beach, Los Angeles point-in-time count issue, something along those lines, they had a whole community in LA, not one of our clients, by the way, that didn't get counted. And this is an area that there was supposed to be a significant population there. So, but how would they know? They don't have the controls. So, they should know their community, but that was kind of an embarrassing result. And it definitely makes you question the credibility of the entire count when that happens. So we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen to any of our communities.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, just 10-minute mark. So
Okay, thank you. So we got some new features in the command center. I'm gonna boss through there, make sure we save some time for Q&A. A new team leader role is really one of the things that's worth noting that will be coming. We want to make it easier to have a count effort where not everyone has to go to a deployment center, especially some of the communities that they're more geographically spread out. It doesn't make sense to send everyone downtown and then only send them all back out to the rural area. So to have a count team lead set to be able to say, let's meet at this McDonald's on the corner of whatever, and to know who's what they're supposed to be meeting with and when, and then also have internal messaging baked in. We're just trying to make it easier logistically, so not have this giant deployment center approach. Which there's times for that, but we can support both is the point. For new for this year, we do have an offering of formal point-in-time evaluation dashboards. Excited that we've got a few different people on staff. They're familiar with Tableau. We do have national point-in-time dashboards currently, but these are going to be an updated, refreshed version of dashboards that can let you have a community-specific lens into your point-in-time results. And you can use this for the creation of your own formal point-in-time reports, for messaging back to the community, but not everyone reads a 100-page point-in-time report. So for those that have the intellectual curiosity and want to see what's going on and be able to look at the data, from their perspective, that's what this is for. But we also do produce the formal reports. So the idea is, ultimately, the two go hand in hand. So you're getting the people that do want to read a report and have it, the kind of the messaging curated for them, as well as the dashboard. And the numbers you're going to tie out. But this is an example for Solano County from last year. But everything on the left is going to be a key section. And then what we'll do is the idea is to have a consistent base so we can do peer-to-peer benchmarking and really kind of flesh out the guts of that, and then be able to hand it off and allow certain sections like executive summary and other parts that the acknowledgement, et cetera, that we would have you do, because we don't know how to acknowledge. And we don't have a lot of time for demo.
I'll go real quick. I just want to kind of call out some of the things that we're talking about because I think a visual will help. But if there are questions, sorry to cut you off, Matt. I guess, yeah. Go ahead and ask all your questions and I'll try to answer them as I show things, and you can look at things in the background. Does that sound okay, Matt?
I'll monitor the chat, Kevin, so you can rock it all.
All right, cool. All righty. So I want to go ahead and just go over some of the key new features that we talked about so you have a visual. One of the biggest things is going to be the ability to go ahead and open your own surveys if you have the custom questions enabled, or the custom questions optional feature. So this is a new feature that's going to allow you all to look at your surveys, see the structure of the survey, see the dependence of the different survey questions. So you'll see here, this field set is dependent on, have you already been interviewed? You're able to go in and edit the title or the Spanish title. And that'll be the same thing for any of your questions. So this is going to be helpful to reduce the back and forth, and then it also allows you all to make sure that the survey is exactly what you need and you don't have any surprises for your trainings or come the actual counts. Let's go on to counting us. So we are trying to do better about our outreach. Not our outreach, our coverage, and then being able to make sure people are going to where they need, and then pivoting as needed. So inside of my count, you have a status here that just says, are you ready? Are you not ready? Or are you complete? So that people know whether or not you are done. Inside of the region and team, you'll have your region assignment, your team assignment, and then we have like a team bulletin board. And then you also have the users that are a part of your team. So this is something that team leaders can have access to and are able to see everybody. They're able to see if they're ready or not ready. They can click on their profile and send them a message. Or you can also just type a message here and then say, do you want to email them or do you want to go ahead and text them? And the last thing is just going to be a notes thread that just allows you all to talk as a team internally for whatever you need. Like, hey, I have to go. Can somebody please meet me over at wherever so-and-so? Or I really need help right now. There's someone who's having, needs support. I don't know. Let's leave it at that. So those are some of the new features so that we can better get our coverage. Here's a demo portal. We already talked about this. Feel free to go to that URL and check out how it works. It'll allow you to get set up to the actual Counting Us app already. You'll just have to download it, log in, and then you'll be able to see the new surveys for 2024. I'll go and talk about the Command Center quickly to emphasize the whole nobody found location, the new survey type. So here's an example of some regions over in Washington. So you have, your different coverage areas, and you can see while you're counting and prior to counting, so on and so forth, like all the pinpoints that are coming in, as well as known locations separately. This is really like the benefit of our tech in that we have real information coming in that's live. As soon as somebody sends it from Counting Us, we have it available in the Command Center, so you're able to do your planning before the pit as well as during the pit. So this new nobody found pin is going to be helpful for you all as administrators to be like, hey, this area has already been covered. So come the next shift, let's go ahead and pivot to a different area. And that way we're not doing overlaps, right? And we don't have too many people that have already been interviewed. So that is a very quick demo. Just wanted to kind of call out the new features. And we do have a lot of FAQs for our other functionality of how you submit surveys, how you get into Counting Us. So we can send that out as a follow-up. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer in the last couple of minutes?
We get a question about messaging volunteers.
Oh, yeah. Great. So inside of the command center for administrators, you'll see here are all my users. You are able to click on this new function to message users, and then you're able to draft up your email using this text editor. Hello, whatever you need to do, right? And then you're just able to select whoever you need to email. So here I'm just sending a blast email to everybody. Or you can go ahead and sort by region, right? And then select your different users. Something that is still in development is this exact same functionality, but inside of a region and inside of a team, so that you don't have to filter and click on everybody separately, but it will look just like this. So there's that. And then this same text editor here is what we're talking about for the volunteer portal. So now you'll be able to go in and just set whatever text you want here, as well as the email follow-up text. So Vicky asked, do we have email only or SMS as an option? We do have the ability to send text messages using a Twilio integration, and that just sends it from, this de-identified phone number. We do ask that we try to keep that to a minimum, just as far as pricing goes, because this is a free feature at the moment. But we do want to have this available to you all. So I don't know, just at your discretion.
Yeah. It's basically we're absorbing the cost of this third-party service to support this. So right now it's a free feature and we're gonna eat it. But if people really go to town, we're gonna have to pass some of those costs on. So, but it's a similar service that might be used by like DoorDash or Uber. So the people that are on the the driver, for example, doesn't have to give up their personal information in order to send a message out to say, hey, your food's here, I'm on my way, or what have you.
Righty. And then if people do want to stay on and are interested to ask other questions or want to see specifics of the tech, feel free to stay on, and then we can show you how anything works that you want to see. I don't know why I'm rambling. That was a weird way of saying that.
You're good.
Let's see. Okay, so without further ado, I'll just ask y'all, send us, emails there at pit@Simtech Solutions for any kind of quality of life improvements that you want out of the app, out of the command center, out of Counting Us. All of this software is really designed with you all. So if there's things that really irk you, or things that you think could just be just that much better, like let us know. One example is, again, like sending a password reset email right after you register in the volunteer portal. Another might be automatically submitting a survey whenever someone says they've already been interviewed, rather than having the person go back. So any kind of things that come to mind from the experiences that you've had, let us know.
For sure. On the Tracy Shine asked, and not to put you out there, you've asked me directly, Tracy, but I think it's better for you to hear from other people. She said, what are the common technical issues with the app, user concerns? And we're trying to be as good as we can here. And I think it's that part of that's being candid, and just let's if anyone that's used the app in the past has wants to speak on our behalf for that, how well it works or doesn't work, that'd be appreciated.
This is Jet from the County of Santa Barbara. I know something that we've struggled with in the past is communicating with the teams and letting people know what teams they're on. And so I'm really excited for the function now where we can communicate directly with volunteers and sort by teams and everything and be able to connect them to each other. So that was always kind of a, we did the deployment center where 100 people show up at a single location, and then trying to put people into teams who don't know each other, can't recognize each other, is always really difficult. So I'm excited to be able to text people and say, hey, meet in front of the library and do that. So
yeah, we had one community, and it was like a city councilwoman went out and she couldn't find the people that she was supposed to be counting with, and it was what that type of thing. And that would happen no matter what kind of tech you're using. We have to have a way to facilitate like where to go and who you're meeting with. But people don't know what each other look like and all that. So it was, that percolated up as a feature based on real world experience. So I'm excited to have that too.
Yeah. Oh, I love to hear that, and we work with a lot of people, and we don't know what we don't know, and the tech is only as good as it is being used, right? So whatever issues y'all have had in the past that have prevented something from working out for you, like we really need to know, because there's no point of us having, regions if you're really not able to coordinate, right? So happy to get that in works, and we can share some, send you Jet some links when we have some updates to it, so you can have a better idea of going into it, and then we can have a conversation about how it works. Should we be biased and answer some of the questions or some of the feedback that we've had for issues, or is anyone else willing to
I think
speak
that's
on our
okay
behalf?
too, if anyone feels like sharing.
And this is Mike Daniels. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm in Atlanta. And so let me tell you, I've been out for a while using this, I think almost since the beginning when we started. And so I've seen it evolve greatly. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing to make improvements to the application. The other thing is I found out is that there was a lot of times where between the Android and the iPhone, we were having difficulties and the thing would freeze. I'm sorry, I'm an Android person, and my phone wouldn't work in the middle of doing an interview, and someone else had to take over. So I don't know if it was the area. So we was having issues like that, but just to let you know.
Yeah.
So
No, for
Mike,
sure.
I actually wonder if you were using a Hyperion last year, because we didn't work with Atlanta. So I think you might be talking about another vendor.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha.
Yeah, no, and actually you made up a good point. Like our stuff works. And
Oh,
indirectly you brought up the fact that there's issues with other vendors. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I will add, I am the resident Android user, so I go through and test things personally on my own phone. So I'll be on the lookout for any of those things.
And I think it's worth noting too, anyone can download the app right now and try it and try to break it. And the setup key is demo. So you download the app, you register an account, and you can use the word demo just to try to break it. And if you're having any issues, then let us know. But again, we've been doing this for a while, and we test thoroughly, and we have a full team of developers and testers and product support. So we're not anticipating any issues, but please try to break it.
Yeah, so I just want to address kind of his concerns that those kinds of things may happen as far as internet connection goes with our app. Whenever that happens and you try to submit a survey, it will tell you that there's not an internet connection at the moment. Do you want to save this as a draft? So anything can be saved in progress and stored offline, and then whenever you get back to internet connection, you can just submit that if everything is complete. So that is a fallback that we have in our app. And then we would be happy to have a conversation with you and give you, show you, how things are working, and we can compare to what you've experienced and just, I don't know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Because we definitely hate to hear that kind of thing. Like the reason why we do this software is to help y'all, right? And we don't want to have problems like that happen. So looking forward to talking. Um, any other feedback from anyone else that we can share, or I could kind of just talk about common problems in general. The drafts and the situation that we just covered is going to be your main one, in which you don't have internet connection, but the GPS for your phone is always in place, so that will always store the coordinates, and that's something that's a key differentiator in our tech, in that even if you go offline, we still have the exact pinpoint of where you did the survey when you save a draft, so that it's not like other softwares where you'll have 20 drafts, and then when you get back to internet connection, all 20 of those drafts are from, this one area. So that's something to make note of. Other things will be about coordination. So how do we define our coverage areas? Right now we have a click functionality, and sometimes the coverage area, the tracks are pretty large. That's why we're working on having better team functions so that you can better coordinate for smaller areas within a particular set of users, a small team, instead of 100 people inside of one region. Other things would be about our setup process. So getting custom questions done, the labels added, and all that back and forth. So we're trying to tighten that up. And yeah, I'm trying to find a lot of issues, but I think that would be the majority, and other stuff like, I don't know, I guess, sorry, I'm biased, but those are the common things that we hear. Um, yeah. Does anybody have other questions? It's quite a number of y'all here, so what would you all be interested in seeing or learning about?
I don't have a question, but I would like to say I'm always so surprised when I come to these SimTech meetings and I see people from all over the country, because I feel like I have such access to your team that I'm like, oh, we must be like one of 3 communities they're working with. But you guys are working with everyone and we still get this level of service. So I just wanted to say thank you before I sign off.
All right. Hey, love to hear it. I think all of us on the team love to hear it. We work hard, and this is our, time to take care of y'all, right? Because y'all are doing the hardest work, boots on the ground. So happy to hear that.
Thank you, Jet.
Yeah,
We look.
I was gonna say, I have to jump too, but that was kind of the thing I was typing in the chat, is that you all are so responsive, and that's like really appreciated. We've been with Counting Us for 3 years. We took 1 year with another vendor. We felt like our data was being held hostage. It was very difficult to get our questions built out into the system, and it's just this immediate responsiveness, and that you actually care about and are engaged in the work. And then also that we have real-time access to our data so that we can do data quality checks while the count is going on, to make sure we're not missing anyone and we're getting the best quality data that we can about our people that are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So big shout out, and kudos, props. I do have to hop, but appreciate you all.
Thank you so much, Marianne.
And we're available to that point. You don't have to feel like you have to get all your questions out right now. I think we can wrap up. Pit@simtechsolutions.com, contact form. We can send out our personal calendars. You can book a meeting with us at your convenience. So we have different ways that you can reach out to us. And this won't be the last webinar we'll have. We're here throughout the count, and we don't do the count just one day a year. This is our, this is an ongoing project for us. It's so that's part of it. Reason why we can support more communities is we work on this year round, and we try to build up the resources and listen as much as we can. And we don't start our homework in January.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Counting Us and the command center is as is, and some communities are at certain levels, and if you want to talk about advanced strategies, let's do that. So like Matt said, we as a nation need to build up movements to help push change at the higher levels. So any ways that we can share community approaches across borders, that would be fantastic, and let's see what works and what sticks. So thank you everybody for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one. Take care.
Gosh.